All right. Guys, welcome to the ACAB show. Welcome to the ACAB show. Black People Kind of News, the Church of ACAB. We are going to have a full show today. All right, so today we're going to have several discussions about certain news events that has happened across the planet, but especially in our home nation. We're going to be discussing some things that's happening across seas because we decided to get involved in it as a country, but we're also going to be having discussions based solely on what's happening here in the United States. So if you like the stream, make sure you guys are hitting the like button, make sure you guys are tapping the stream, make sure you guys are sharing the stream with other people that you know. But without further ado, let's get into this first story. So the DOJ, the Department of Justice, has launched investigations into 2 South Carolina detention centers, right? So I've been talking about this as a law enforcement whistleblower. I used to work corrections in South Carolina. I've been talking about this for the longest time. And the DOJ has now finally listened. I have been in contact with people from the Department of Justice. I'm going to go ahead and say that now. And I didn't so much give my opinion, I gave the facts. So here are the 2 detention centers that we're talking about here, right? The probe will look into the Sheriff Al Cannon Detention Center, operated by Charleston County Sheriff's Office in North Charleston, and the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center in Columbia. And the interesting thing is that these detention centers, I've been talking about them for the longest time. And the only reason why this is even a news story, the reason why is because my channel. You guys, I was told that one of the biggest reasons why this even hit the news is you guys. You want to know how I can prove that? I typed in fatheracab here on Tik Tok in South Carolina. This is the most viewed video, the most viewed video platform on the planet. Right? And I showed what happened with the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center. At that detention center, it is in Richland County, South Carolina. The sheriff there, Leon Lott, covers up horrible things that happens to children that are perpetrated by his own sheriff's deputies. Right? And that was happening. And this is the same Richland County that Alvin S. Glenn is under. The same Richland County. Now, let me show you why this is all happening. I want you to see why. Someone attempted a drive-by shooting of a Richland County Sheriff's deputy in Columbia, South Carolina. Let's go ahead and say this first. I discourage all acts of violence. I discourage all acts of violence, right, against any sheriff's deputies. But I'm just sharing what happened here. Okay? Now, I want you to listen to this, hear this, and decide for yourself what is the reason why this stuff is happening. Someone attempted a drive-by shooting of a Richland County Sheriff's deputy in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, people are wondering the reasons why people have been targeting the Richland County Sheriff's Department in South Carolina. Well, let me show you the reasons why. Because even in the Richland County Jail, you have predators like this guy who was just charged with essaying women, or the jail director who was fired last year because he's an alleged predator. I'm not accusing him of that. I'm just repeating what I've been reading in all these freaking news articles. And just last year, you just had a white man, try to lure Richland County Sheriff's deputies by pretending to be a woman in distress to lure them so that he can try to take them out with full body armor and tactical gear. And the reason is that Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott has been covering up what his deputies or anyone else does to little children for the past 30 years. And it's even in the Free Thought Project. And I'm one of those children. That's how I know it's true. Okay. So I'm a whistleblower who worked corrections in South Carolina, and I became a correctional officer, and I went into the military because I wanted to become a hero. The kind of hero that would stand up for someone like myself when I was a child. That's why I did it. So now you're starting to understand the reasons why the DOJ is looking into the same Richland County. I am a correctional officer from South Carolina. I'm telling you, there's a reason why they're doing this. If you don't get it, here, let me give you some further reasoning, right? So we're going to just do this live, okay? We're going to do this live. Doe versus Sheriff of Richland County. So if you don't understand the reasons why the correctional officers, right? we don't understand the reasons why the DOJ is targeting the Department of Corrections in South Carolina. And I'm going to show you why. These three court cases, these are all three different court cases. This is Doe versus Sheriff of Richland County, Doe versus Richland County School District 2, and Doe versus Sheriff of Richland County. Now, why would these arguments be made? Why would these arguments be made? Well, let me show you why. So this is Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center. Is ran by Richland County. Sheriff Leon Lott was the 2021 Sheriff of the Year. He covered up for his deputy here, Jamil Bradley, when Jamil Bradley was targeting high school girls for almost a decade. This is revealed in all in court documents. Now, Leon Lott's right-hand man at that time, his name was John Ewing. John Ewing and Leon Lott helped to cover this stuff up. I'm going to find John Ewing's name. Here we go. Even though Jamil Bradley was found to be messing with high school girls and John Ewing knew about it, he was a captain at Richland County at that time. I want to show you the job that John Ewing got. John Ewing, DJJ. John Ewing became the Inspector General of the Department of Juvenile Justice. Now, he's no longer there, but he became the Inspector General. This man covered up what his deputy did to a high school girl. And he became the Inspector General of the Department of Juvenile Justice, a correctional institution. Corrections. And now you're wondering why the DOJ has to step in with South Carolina. See, that's the kind of context that you wouldn't get anywhere else. That's the kind of context you would not get anywhere else. Now you get it, right? So let's go over this actual article here. I want to just go over this article here. The DOJ announced Thursday it is launching civil investigations into 2 detention centers in South Carolina, citing several reports of inmates unalivings and assaults concerning physical conditions and alleged discrimination of those with disabilities. The probe will look into the Sheriff Al Cannon Detention Center, operated by Charleston County Sheriff. By the Charleston County Sheriff's Office in North Charleston, and the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center in Columbia. So, the investigation into the Sheriff Al Cannon Center will focus on the access to medical and mental health care, the use of solitary confinement, and the use of force by staff. There have been at least 8 reported unalivings at the Al Cannon Center since 2022, and Clark, who is the Assistant AG, pointed to 2 unalivings that gained attention at either a local or national level. Former inmate Jamal Sutherland passed away in January of 2021 after 2 sheriff's deputies forcibly extracted Sutherland, a black man with mental illness, from his cell for a bond hearing and restrained him when he did not comply. The deputies used pepper spray and a stun gun on Sutherland before he later passed away from complications. After an hour of people trying to bring this man back. Wow. That is the quality of law enforcement in South Carolina. I try to warn people as a whistleblower, but nobody wanted to listen to me. The DOJ said a use of force expert for the county prosecutor found Sutherland's unaliving was preventable, though the department announced last year it would not press federal civil rights charges against the 2 deputies, who were both later fired. Wow. They were fired, just not prosecuted, and a man is no longer with us. Okay. Seems fair, I guess. That's just awful. Clark also referred to the unaliving of D'Angelo Brown, who passed away in December of 2022 at the center after months of isolation in the detention center's mental health unit. Medical staff allegedly failed to give Brown, who had serious mental health illness, his prescribed psychiatric medications, which caused him to decompensate severely. Wow. As a former corrections officer and someone who worked law enforcement, none of this sounds shocking. It sounds familiar. He was found unconscious in his cell and he passed away 8 days later at a hospital. The county coroner pointed to gross medical neglect as the cause of his unaliving and ruled it a homicide. At the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center, directed by Richland County, Clark said there have been 6 known unalivings since February of last year. One inmate passed away from dehydration, which was later ruled a homicide, and another incarcerated person was unalived by fellow inmates after the center did not secure the cell doors. She added that there were at least 2 escapes, 1 riot, and 16 confirmed reportings, and at least 16 confirmed reports of stabbings and assaults, along with 2 alleged SAs. Wow. Calling the physical conditions of the center troubling, Clark said there are reports of mold and vermin. Noting most of the people incarcerated in these centers are people of color, the department argued that each inmate deserves to be treated fairly, regardless of their alleged crimes. And mind you, the Alvin S. Glenn and all these detention centers are for people who are merely accused. You got people there who'll be locked up there for sometimes a long time, and they haven't even had a trial. They haven't even had a trial. Haven't even had a trial. These people are innocent until proven guilty. But this kind of report is not shocking coming out of South Carolina, because I tried to warn people. I said, your police departments and your sheriff's deputies are corrupt. Very corrupt. And South Carolina is one of the most corrupt states out there when it comes to this issue. I tried to warn people, did I not? I tried to tell people, and nobody wanted to listen because everybody wanted to be right. Okay. Well, maybe this time you'll listen. Maybe this time you'll listen. So, let's get into the next news story. Black Americans to Biden White House. Freedmen's Bank is about Black Americans, not diversity or people of color. Written by Ann Brown from Mogadum Nation. I am a big fan of Mogadum Nation. If you're not reading them, then you're missing out. News that is written from the Black American's perspective, and that is very, very important. And you have fantastic Black women who write for Mogadum Nation. Ann Brown is one of my favorites. I read them pretty frequently. I try to go at least 2 or 3 days before I go and I check back, because I want to give them the time to populate some stories. But I always come and check back. And whenever I do these live stories, I always make sure I cover at least a few from Mogadum Nation. So shout out to Ann Brown. So this is going to be about the Freedmen's Bank. And, you know, basically Black Americans, we are calling for the Freedmen's Bank. Basically an entity that is for Black Americans, by Black Americans, that handles Black American money and cares about our interests, our financial interests, because we had something like that before and it was destroyed. So, as anything that Black Americans built, it was destroyed quickly. So, let's get into this. On October 25th, the White House held its annual Freedmen's Bank Forum. While the event, now in its 3rd year, is supposed to celebrate the legacy of the Freedmen's Bank while promoting racial equity in the U.S. Many people on Twitter X were taken aback by the scope of this year's forum. We're taken aback. The forum, attended by Vice President Kamala Harris and U.S. Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen, promoted programs targeting diversity and people of color. It's about the freedmen, the Black Americans, the Black descendants of American slaves. That's why you call them freedmen. Why are you including people of color at the Freedmen's? Okay, do you see the insults people are giving to you? Freedmen's Bank was solely for African Americans, not all people of color. That's why you call it the Freedmen's Bank. See, but Black Americans and specifically the black descendants of American slaves or foundation of Black Americans, we are not allowed to have anything to ourselves. We have to share everything with everybody. It's the Freedmen's Bank. There's no people of color in that. So The annual Freedmen's Bank Forum, hosted by the U.S. Department of Treasury, has aimed to offer an occasion to reflect on the administration's efforts to address economic disparities for black communities. The Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, chartered by Congress in 1865, was intended to provide newly emancipated black Americans with a secure place for their savings, encouraging financial security and the accumulation of family wealth in the post-Civil War era. So it was meant for us. It was something that was created to allow us to save our money and to feel safe about it, to actually feel a part of the American experience. Though we don't have a Freedmen's Bank right now, so what do you think happened to that? Destroyed. This historical institution, led by Frederick Douglass, played a pivotal role in supporting black property owners. However, it ultimately faced significant challenges and eventually closed, leaving many depositors with substantial losses. The modern-day efforts to address economic disparities should not lose sight of the unique impact the Freedmen's Bank had on the American freedmen community. The honoring of the efforts of the Freedmen's Bank didn't seem to be front and center at the forum. Some critics complained that the concerns of black Americans were pushed aside for the sake of inclusion of all people of color, and that's the great insult. When it comes to us, we gotta share it. But when it comes to other communities, they can have their own thing, and we can't have any part of it. During the event, Yellen stressed diversity in her speech. Quote, "All of us here know that the U.S. economy has not historically worked well for Black, Latino, Native American, and many Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. And we also share a forward-looking vision of an economy that unlocks the economic potential of people, communities, and businesses that have been left behind. We share this vision because it is fair and also because it is good economics crucial to our country's economic strength and resilience," she said. She continued, "Over the past 2.5 years, this vision has led us to help drive the most equitable recovery on record. Now the same conviction underlies our work to build the most inclusive economy we can for the long term." She went through some of the efforts of the White House, which again focus on inclusion. Interesting. So you say that, right, Miss Yellen? Now you're saying all that you're doing so much for us, right? You're doing so much for us, right? You're doing so much for us. Yet you got black Americans right here. You got black people have to sue the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, got to sue him to stop using public buildings to house migrants. But you're doing so much for us. See, that's the whole people of color game. You include every other group under people of color, and then when it comes time for the money and the resources, do you know who gets the benefit? Everybody but black people. Do you see the game here? See, that's why they keep mentioning people of color, so that when they do something for one group, they ain't got to do nothing for your black self. See? Right? Wow. So, even at the Freedmen's Forum, they're talking about all the other people. This is why I can't rock with Kamala Harris. When you're non-FBA and you're constantly not trying, listen, being non-FBA and being in politics, that's not a problem. Being non-FBA and calling yourself black, but not doing anything for black people, and then making statements like, well, I'm not going to just do something just for black people. No. Okay, Kamalas. That's why you're having problems with black Americans right now. That's why. So, we got to talk about Roland Martin. we got to talk about Mr. Roland Martin. Roland Martin tries to shame us into blind support for the Democratic Party because we're talking about reparations. And so this man wants to shame us. Mr. Roland Martin wants to shame us. And this is for educational purposes. I just want to correct the record. This is for educational purposes. This piece was written by Ann Brown from Mogadum Nation. I love Ann Brown, by the way. If you're not reading Mogadum Nation, you are missing out. She's a fantastic, fantastic reporter. Love her work. Love her writing. Let's get into this story here. Roland Martin tries to shame us into blind support for Democratic Party, according to the ADOS reparations community. Recently, journalist Roland Martin warned black voters that if the Republicans take the White House back in 2024, black America can forget about reparations. Martin, who has previously been a CNN contributor, has been vocal about reparations, often at odds with those who advocate for a more specific form of reparations, targeting Native black Americans with direct ancestry tracing back to former slaves. However, his recent statement spotlights the political aspect of the reparations discussion. Mind you, Roland Martin is non-FBA. He's not a descendant of black Americans. So why are you even commenting on this in the first place, sir? You have no place in this conversation to be saying, oh, well, you gonna get it or not gonna get it. Sir, whoever gets it or not gets it, it won't include you. So this is where a lot of us in the FBA side, this is where many of us part ways, man. We don't have a problem with people having opinions, but when you're non-FBA, your opinion should be a little bit lower than ours, right? On this issue, on this specific issue, that's it. Everything else, equal opinion. But if you're not even in line to receive it, why are you even commenting on it, Roland Martin? In an episode of his podcast, Roland Martin Unfiltered, on October 13th, Martin said, I keep telling black people these white folks are holding on to this as long as they can. Let me be real clear. There's not a darn thing you want that the right is going to give you. Y'all folks who want reparations, there is not a single Republican who supports reparations. I can guarantee you they're going to make sure that never happens. You ain't going to even get a study. You can hang that up. You ain't getting S. Well, Roland Martin's statements didn't sit well with some reparations advocates, some of whom took it as a threat. Okay. Wow. DAP ADOS Tribe, who has the username @BlackAction, tweeted in part, neither party is worth the American descendant of slavery or black American vote. As we prioritize ourselves, whoever wins in the races we vote down ballot in, so be it. This started a back and forth between the user and Martin, who tweeted in response, if y'all want to see sheer stupidity, it's this tweet from @BlackAction. Wow. He's calling people names. Again, notice how Roland is talking to black people that he never talks to freaking white people. Calling them names. This person said, whoever wins in the races we vote down ballot in, so be it. Then the fool said the focus is no longer on the candidate or the party. That speaks directly to what a voter wants. Wow. In turn, DAP ADOS Tribe responded, looks like my post got under Roland's skin. I'm definitely on the right track. And he also said that 80% of Roland's content is wagging his finger at black people and talking to us like we're dogs. You can't effectively advocate for people you're demonizing. Yeah. You can't do that, Roland. You talk down to us, Roland. Right? You talk down to us, Roland. You absolutely do, Roland. And that's why I just can't have respect for that, man. You're not FBA. Stay out of FBA business, sir. Bishop Talbert Swans, another piece written by Ann Brown from Mogadum Nation. If you're not reading from Mogadum Nation, you're missing out, guys. I love Ann Brown. You should too. She writes excellent pieces, and she writes stories that black America should care about. You know, it is a beautiful thing when you can get things from a Black American perspective that isn't just watered down or made to be soft for sponsors or content. Bishop Talbert Swan. America is more loyal to Israel than its own black citizens. 100%. 100% Bishop. Civil rights activist Bishop Talbert Swan, president of the Greater Springfield National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, is questioning the allocation of U.S. aid. In recent tweets, he pointed out the disparity between the aid provided to foreign nations such as Israel and Ukraine and the treatment of his own Black American citizens. Many are questioning President Joe Biden's proposal of $105 billion national security package, which includes substantial assistance to Israel and Ukraine. Yeah, I told people that if Democrats want to lose, you keep supporting Ukraine and not supporting Black Americans. That is a guaranteed way to lose. Guaranteed. Guaranteed way to lose. In a recent video posted on social media, Swan said the U.S. government allotting billions to foreign aid and none to reparations for Black Americans, quote, they can find nearly $4 billion a year to give to Israel, but they can't find any money to give to African Americans who descended from enslaved Africans. And it is a shame. We're not asking for a handout. We're not asking for you to do us a favor. That's money that is owed. That's a debt the United States has yet to pay, end quote. Right? And I want to.
They can find nearly $4 billion a year to give to Israel, but they can't find any money to give to African Americans who descended from enslaved Africans. It's a travesty. It's a shame. And we're not asking for a handout. We're not asking for you to do us a favor. That's money that is owed. That's a debt that the United States has yet to pay.
Absolutely. Listen, I couldn't have said it better myself. Swan, who was appointed to the Massachusetts State Hate Crimes Task Force, is a prelate in the Church of God in Christ, serving as the bishop of the Vermont ecclesiastical jurisdiction in the U.S. Swan is the fifth leader of the jurisdiction and oversees the COGIC or COGIC congregations in Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and New York. He tweeted, quote, Joe Biden is requesting billions of taxpayer dollars from Congress to support Israel's continued unaliving of the Palestinian people, end quote. He added a lyric from the Tupac song, Keep Your Head Up. You know it's funny when it rains, it pours. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Shout out to Tupac, man. Shout out to the freaking Tupac, man. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Shout out to Tupac, man. Shout out to Tupac, man. Bishop Talbert Swan is spitting, man. And I'm so glad Black men in particular are speaking up, because they always tell Black men, how come you don't speak up? You don't speak up for issues. And yet when we do, what do? Do you listen to us, or do you belittle us? You should get more involved in the issues, and then when we do, you will tell us how to get involved. You don't actually try to encourage us. You tell us how to think. See, it's not about us getting involved. It's about us getting involved the way you want us to. See, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Let's get into this, man. Risking economic implosion. U.S. war appetite and Israel alliance fuel inflation fears. Written on October 30th by Ann Brown from Mogul Nation. Ann Brown is a fantastic reporter and writer. If you're not reading Mogul Nation, you are missing out. We're going to get deeper into this story, though. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, which has resulted in escalating violence and geopolitical tensions, is now causing concerns about a political spike in global inflation. Global inflation, wow. One of the primary factors contributing to these concerns is the surge in oil prices. Oil prices has reached as high as $93 a barrel, reacting to the possibility of an expanding conflict. So now oil prices are going up and you're suffering because of that. The increase in oil prices can significantly impact the global economy as it affects various sectors, from transportation to manufacturing. As oil prices rise, costs of fuel and energy also go up, which could lead to increased production and transportation costs, eventually causing a spike in consumer prices. And mind you, that also means a rise in pollution. The more oil you have to produce, the more you got to pollute to even do that. These events come at a time when central banks, like the Federal Reserve, have been working to combat inflationary pressures. The result is a fragile balance between economic growth and inflation control. Then add to this the cost of supporting allies in conflicts. Wow. Let me show you something real quick, man. Anne Brown is fantastic. Do you see how she wrote that? You know, if Anne Brown, if you ever write this, I want you to know, sis, you are amazing. You see how she laid that out, man? That was beautiful. Ooh. These events come at a time when central banks like the Federal Reserve have been working to combat inflationary pressures. The result is a fragile balance between economic growth and inflation control. Then add to this the cost of supporting allies in conflicts. She laid that out perfectly. I read it again because, again, she laid that out perfectly. You can't argue with her. She's right. That is incredibly expensive. Standard & Poor's, which rates the creditworthiness of governments and companies, announced that the conflict between Hamas and Israel, in addition to the Ukraine-Russia war, threatens to compound an already strained global outlook. Standard & Poor's warned a further increase in energy prices triggered by the escalating conflict in the Middle East, quote, could underpin inflation and weigh on economic activity, end quote, The Guardian reported. Yet U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has declared that the U.S. can certainly afford to support both Israel and Ukraine. Yeah, I actually reported on that, and she said that. That is amazing. Yellen seemed to overlook the possibility of risking an economic implosion spurred on by the U.S. war appetite and the country's Israel alliance that has already fueled inflation fears. This woman actually said that. She said that we can afford both things. I want to open this real quick. I want you to see that. She actually said that. That's amazing. How out of touch can you be? Again, I'm saying this as for educational purposes, but I'm also critiquing politicians here. So it's not harassment or abuse. I'm talking about politicians in terms of our tax dollars. How can we afford both conflicts at once? How is that possible? How is that possible? U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen doesn't seem too worried about America's $33 trillion gross federal debt. According to Yellen, the country can take on more expenses, especially when injecting itself into other countries' military conflicts. The Treasury Secretary recently said that the U.S. can certainly afford to support Israel and Ukraine with aid. Yellen told Sky News the U.S. can certainly afford to support wars on two fronts as the conflict between Israel and Hamas threatens stability in the Middle East, and the U.S. continues to back Ukraine's fight against Russia. Wow. So right now, oil prices and gas prices and the price of energy in general is rising because of these conflicts. But and we already have inflation. We already have rising rents. We have all this stuff. It's already here. And it's about to get worse. And people are still supporting Ukraine and Israel. And the crazy thing about it is that people painted it as Republicans were the only warmongers. And I agree, Republicans are absolutely warmongers, but Democrats, you ain't better. You're showing it right now. You're still supporting two wars on two fronts. About to be a third with freaking Taiwan, right? About to be a freaking third. And the whole threat of inflation you're not even caring about? Or rising fuel costs or gas prices you don't even care about? Man, oh man. And let me show you the reason why they don't care about it. There's another piece written by Ann Brown from Mogul Nation. If you're not reading from Mogul Nation, you're missing out, man. Ann Brown's one of my favorite reporters out there. She's doing her thing, and I support her 100% because she's a good black woman out here giving us the good news. Defense contractors and campaign donations. 7 things you need to know about war money. So this is the reason why they think we can afford to support 2 wars on 2 fronts, about to be a third in Taiwan. Because the defense contractors and campaign donations, see, that's what you got to know about. As Pentagon spending has soared over the years, the role of military contractors in shaping the U.S. defense landscape has come under intense scrutiny. There is an intricate relationship between defense contractors, political campaign donations, and Pentagon spending. Here are 7 things to know about war money. Number 1, Pentagon spending. A significant portion of the massive military budget flows into the coffers of military contractors who provide the equipment, technology, and services required by the U.S. military. So the Pentagon spends all that money, right? And they overspend for all this stuff. And these contractors, they come out looking like fat cats. Advocates for spending more on the military seem bipartisan. Mitch McConnell agreed with President Joe Biden about upping aid to Ukraine. According to McConnell, in the long run, it will benefit the U.S. not in terms of political flex, but monetarily. He claims that giving more money to Ukraine rebuilds our industrial base. Wow. So you're going to rebuild your industrial base by using war where people are losing their lives. Oh, okay. During an interview with CBS's Face the Nation, McConnell contended that a significant portion of the more than $61 billion aimed at helping Ukraine will be spent domestically to replenish American stockpiles. A significant portion of it is being spent in the U.S. in 38 different states, replacing the weapons that we sent to Ukraine with more modern weapons, end quote. He also said that we are rebuilding our industrial base. The Ukrainians are destroying the army of one of our biggest rivals. I have a hard time finding anything wrong with that. Because you're a war hawk. War hawks have no problem with war and us paying for it. He's saying that as if he served a single day in Iraq or freaking Afghanistan. You said the same thing then, sir. You didn't serve in those conflicts, and you ain't serving in this one. But instead, you're sending American treasure and American money over to those people instead of helping people in your home state. Dominance of major corporations. A startling revelation is that a considerable chunk of Pentagon contracts is awarded to just 5 major corporations: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman. Lockheed Martin, for instance, received a staggering $75 billion in Pentagon contracts in fiscal year 2020, which surpasses the entire budget of the State Department and the Agency for International Development. According to the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University. Wow. So, of all the contractors, these 5, right? These 5 are the only real ones. 3, lobbying influence. To maintain their prominence, weapons manufacturers have spent over $2.5 billion on lobbying over the past 2 decades, according to the Watson Institute. The staggering figure equates to employing over 700 lobbyists each year over the past 5 years. In essence, this means that there is more than 1 lobbyist for every member of Congress, highlighting the immense influence these corporations exert over political decision making. 4. Wartime contracting abuses. One concerning aspect of the relationship between military contractors and the government is the potential for abuse. Numerous companies have capitalized on wartime conditions, and sometimes it's through overcharging the government. In 2011, the Commission on Wartime Contracting in Iraq and Afghanistan estimated that waste, fraud, and abuse had cost the U.S. government between $31 billion and $60 billion. Let me give you a personal story with that. So, I used to be in the military. I was in the Army. And let me just explain to you briefly how some of this military spending works. And people will disagree with this, and the people who do that are liars. I know exactly how it works. Say you have a budget. Say you got a repair shop in the Army, right? And you fix military trucks. You fix MRAPs. You fix the up armor Humvees. You fix that stuff, right? Say you don't order. There's a whole ordering system where you can order parts and stuff. Say you don't use your whole budget that is allotted to your unit, or to your section, or to your battalion, or your battery, right? Say you don't use all that money, right? Say you just you save money because you don't break things as often. You'll get less money allocated to you the next time around. Seriously. So you get people who will buy crazy stuff off of these ordering sites, right? The U.S. Army has their own internal systems, right? They'll start ordering a bunch of bullets, bunch of coffee mugs, just to make sure they use all that budget to make it appear like they need a bigger budget next time, or the same thing but not less. Seriously. Number 5, political campaign contributions. Probably the biggest reason there. Defense contractors are known for generously contributing to political campaigns and committees. This financial support often influences the stances of lawmakers when it comes to defense policy, further deepening the integration of the military-industrial complex into the political landscape. So this happens so often to the point where you have politicians who are on the record who will defend these contractors. I mean, during the whole wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, those are what the wars are actually called. Defense contractors were known to give out big money. In fact, one of the biggest people out there who was advocating for those conflicts were the contractors. Number 6, back scratching. In April of 2022, during congressional discussions over the allocation of new weapons and military assistance to Ukraine, Raytheon Technologies, one of the nation's major defense contractors, gave out more than $51,000 in contributions to members of Congress and bipartisan political committees. Business Insider reported. So, like I just said, these defense contractors give out political contributions, and it's seen as freedom of speech. You can't stop them from doing this, and you can't stop lawmakers from voting from voting a certain way. That's freedom of speech until you make a law against it. According to a disclosure submitted to the FEC, Raytheon Technologies has donated to over 30 congressional campaigns, as well as various leadership political action committees and national party committees. Throughout that month, as Raytheon Technologies made these financial contributions to lawmakers, legislators were engaged in deliberations on more than 10 Ukraine-related bills. The Senate went on to approve a $40 billion military and humanitarian aid package for Ukraine. Like I said, there's big money to be made from this stuff, man. Number 7, short-lived stock gains. While defense stocks often experience a boost after military conflicts, these gains are typically short-lived. For instance, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, defense stocks surged, but these gains were soon reversed. After Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, the iShares Defense ETF went up by 5%, with Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman's shares soaring about 20%. However, within 6 months, these stocks reverted, losing most of their gains. So people see short-term gains, and people do this whole pump and dump scheme, whereas they'll boost up stuff, and if you got the money to boost up to boost up stuff, and then make yourself a profit, and then convince other people to get into it, make the argument for you. You got people out there arguing for war. Oh, here's why we got to go fund Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan and everything else. That's why defense contractors love those people, because you are justifying their own greed and them making a buck off of human suffering. You know? And they're giving money to politicians to make sure you feel that way. Yeah. Yeah, boy. That is amazing. That is amazing, isn't it? Now, next story. The national head of the head of the National Association of Realtors resigns. The chief executive of the National Association of Realtors, NAR, resigned from his position Thursday, 2 days after a federal jury ruled that the organization was liable for nearly $1.8 billion in damages for conspiring to inflate commissions. Wow. Inspiring to inflate commissions. Why is that? Why is that? Well, let's go back to this story as reported on yesterday. Oh, day before yesterday, actually. Realtors liable for nearly $1.8 billion in damages for inflated commissions, jury finds. A jury in Missouri found Tuesday that the National Association of Realtors, or NAR, Home Services of America, and Keller Williams are liable for nearly $1.8 billion in damages for conspiring to inflate commissions. A judge could issue an injunction preventing commission sharing on multiple listing services, which would hurt the buyer agent business. Quote, "We view it as a tremendous day of accountability for these companies," end quote. Michael Ketchmark, the lead attorney for the plaintiffs, told CNN. The lawsuit covered home sales that took place between April 2015 and June 2022. The decision came after a few hours of deliberation from the Kansas City jury. According to NAR President Tracy Kesper, the matter is not close to being final, even though the trial lasted 11 days. Well, the same person, right? Same person, I'm pretty sure, is not saying the exact same thing, because the head of the National Association of Realtors has resigned. Right? NAR CEO Bob Goldberg said in a statement, "After announcing my decision to retire earlier this year, and as I reflected on my 30 years at NAR, I determined last month that now is the right time for this extraordinary organization to look to the future." Goldberg announced that he will be resigning at a closed-door staffing meeting. Goldberg has faced calls for his immediate resignation since August, when the Times published an article outlining the association had widespread complaints of harassment and discrimination. NAR's former president, Kenny Parcho, stepped down 2 days after the Times exposed the Times expose, which detailed reports from multiple women that they had been harassed or subjected to inappropriate conduct by Parcell and other NAR leaders. But Goldberg's resignation was not related to the harassment allegations or the $1.8 billion legal verdict. Mantel Williams, a spokesman for the organization, told the Times. A Missouri jury on Tuesday found that NAR, National Association of Realtors, Home Services of America, and Keller Williams liable for damages in a $1.8 billion lawsuit, as you just now saw. The lawsuit covered home sales that took place between April 2015. You've already heard this, right? You've already heard this. Right? But as you can see, what this will do is that it will change the future of home buying. It's going to change the cash incentives. They're going to try to find money elsewhere, but for right now, this will definitely lower the cost of homes, because the commissions that the realtors and the real estate agencies were getting was highway robbery. Absurd. Ridiculous. Right? So this is something that I think you should keep an eye on, because without these huge commissions, I mean, without these huge commissions, the prices to actually close a home and the overall cost of a home, even rent prices, will drop. Right? So with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for the show today. I'm going to do more shows like this, more live shows, more open shows. I want to do more shows like this because for the most part, man, I find that this content is useful. This content has a purpose. I just hate that sometimes, some of my opinions may not jive well with everybody that I really do like. That my opinions may not always fit what you want. But I say things from the standpoint of I care about my people and I care about the country. And if sometimes that means I'm going to run afoul of people that I like, I have to live with that. I just hope they understand that I still love you, even though I would wish that you would consider some things. But at the end of the day, guys, this is all about content. It's all about love. I want you guys to never trust the government and always question things, man, because as you can see, the government's giving you reasons to not trust them. The government's giving you reasons to not consider them trustworthy. And if I'm being quite honest with you, the U.S. government has been quite untrustworthy for quite some time, I'm just being honest with you. Yeah, I just made that just now. So anyways, guys, until next time, be safe out there. Make sure you guys catch me in my live shows and make sure you guys are sharing my content. Until next time, horns up, peace out, good night, and good luck.